I love the liveliness, the constant feeling of energy.
Definitely the world-class education.
The diversity. Nah, the nightlife.
I would say the people.
For me, it's the stories. My name is Waja, and welcome to Toronto Story Archive. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Toronto Story Archive. Confession time. Summer 2016 was my first time ever going to a Jays game. I know, right? Running this podcast, I seem like such a diehard Torontonian, like this is city living blasphemy. At least that's what my friends told me. Well, no, they actually said, you haven't been to a Jays game? What the hell's wrong with you? How long have you been living in the city? But yeah, summer 2016, first Jays game, and it was awesome. Going into it, I bought a Jays hat, also a first for me, and I wore the tank my fiance hates the most, Toronto versus everybody. She's from Ottawa. It's fine. We're working past it. Also, the game itself was pretty sweet. The Jays straight wrecked the Yankees, courtesy of a home run by Bautista in the bottom of the eighth, so that was nice, but it was the atmosphere that really sold it. From Circus Maximus in ancient Rome to the Waja Stadium today, sports have always had the capacity to unify a population in the adrenal excitement of singular moments that create their own little pockets of history. Or at least, so it seems when I Google image Circus Maximus chariot races. I read recently that Circus Maximus was actually way more popular than the Colosseum, at least in terms of chosen entertainment. But I guess Russell Crowe wouldn't have been able to lay down the "My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, commander of the armies of the north, general of the Felix legions, loyal servant to the true emperor Marcus Aurelius, father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I will have my vengeance, in this life or the next," as well during a chariot race. I'm sorry, that was embarrassing. But I love that movie. Anyway, another never done for me is attending a bachelor party. In fact, if we're being honest, the first one I'm going to attend will probably be my own, at least at the rate the rest of my friends are going. But this week's guest, on the other hand, has had the opportunity to experience his first ball game as one of the events during his best friend's bachelor party, and through that party, discover some of the hidden gems Toronto has to offer. This week, I have the pleasure of chatting with Mike Cicero. Mike is a supply teacher, math tutor, and science tutor. Coming at us from Thornhill, welcome, Mike.
Thank you. How are you doing today?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm fabulous.
Awesome. Michael, I have to start by asking you the one major question that we ask everyone who comes on Toronto Story Archive, and that is, what is one thing you love about Toronto?
What is one thing I love about Toronto? Well, I would probably have to go along the lines of the food. The reason why I got to say the food is because I think as anywhere in Toronto, you can pretty much get anything. From pho to sushi to shawarma. There's so many different varieties of food in Toronto. And I think that really caters to the diversity of our city. I know that, there's a lot of the staple restaurants, like, you have your McDonald's, your Burger Kings, they're all over the place. But I think tied in with that has a lot to do with, you can go down the street corner, you can find a shawarma place, you can find a sushi place. I personally, I'm not a big pho guy, but I love shawarma. It's one of my things that I love to eat. So I think probably the biggest thing I love about this city is the fact that it's so diverse. Then it really shows that through the culture and the different foods that you can eat.
Man, I gotta level with you. You are so far the first person to mention the food. And I think that's crazy because the food is awesome. I can't even tell you the number of late night, pho adventures that we'd go on to like Pho Train or something along that line down on Spadina. Like the food here is real. Uber Eats honestly just changed my life because now I don't even have to go anywhere anymore. It just comes to me.
You order it, it comes to your house, and you can order whatever you want.
Exactly. Like I was playing volleyball last week Wednesday, and I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty rough. I was I was displeased. So I was like, man, I need some comfort food to make me feel better. So I ordered like ribs from the Greenwood Smokehouse. And you don't think I'm gonna order in some ribs, because like who orders in ribs? But man, they came and they're just on point, completely on point.
And I bet they came like it was still warm, and they probably taste delicious.
Dude, let me tell you, they were so efficient in bringing me these ribs that I hadn't actually arrived home yet. I had to get out of the subway and, well, now that I think about it, call an Uber to get me home in time for the Uber Eats, which I suppose is kind of how they get you.
I guess so. You got an
Yeah.
Uber Eat and then call an Uber to make sure that everything works out.
Exactly. So I mean, what are some of the best places you've eaten in Toronto? What's you love shawarma? What's your flavor?
Oh, sure. Okay, so I'm a big chicken shawarma guy. But the place that I actually go to for my shawarma, it's actually close to up here in Thornhill where I live. It's called Deja Vu. It's like right down the street from me.
Hmm.
Really nice Iranians. They're amazing people, and but yeah, that's my go-to shawarma place. Downtown though, I mean, outside of shawarma, one of my uh favorite places that I enjoy going to, it's called Cherry Beach BBQ, um,
Hmm.
which I'm actually going to talk about later because I was introduced to it. But it's one of my favorite places that I enjoy eating at. It's a great place. They got amazing pulled pork. I was recommended it from one of my friends.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, for me, back in my Ryerson days, back when I was living right downtown, that was always Lou Dogs for us. That was like it was known. You want a good sandwich. You want a good sandwich. You take a walk up north, close to Church Street, and you get some Lou Dogs. That's awesome. So you,
Where
you
is that?
live
I've never
out
heard of it.
in. Oh, you haven't heard of Lou Dogs? Man, Lou Dogs is phenomenal. It's just a little bit north of. Oh man, now I gotta think of the intersection. It's been so long. It's a little bit north of Yonge and Dundas, and then you go along until you hit about Church Street, and it's on the intersection, like two streets north of Dundas, and on the intersection at Church, and you find Lou Dogs. That place is fantastic. And in the summer, right? You look at it and you just see this building face. You go inside. It's got some karaoke on Wednesday. It's a solid place. You go out in the back and it's got this closed off patio that I never knew existed until I was wandering around downtown with a friend of mine last summer, and it's so nice. Everything there is so nice. It made my university special.
I feel like a lot of the really good food places you kind of have to discover, and you only do that by wandering downtown Toronto. Um, but there's so many really good hidden food places downtown. That's what I really like about it.
Oh, 100%. It's so interesting, right? Because when you explore Toronto and when you look for places to be within the city, right? You have your obvious ones. Like bringing it back to when I was at Ryerson, right across the road, right? You want Thai food, you go to like Salad King or you go to Spring Rolls. Those are your two options. But if you go to the Salad King just north of Dundas on Yonge Street and you go like one street farther, there's this entrance that doesn't even look like it's a restaurant at all. But if you go up there, like you go all the way up to the top, and it's just wide, spacious restaurant with easily some of the best Thai food I've had ever, at least in this city.
That's great. I'm sounds like a place I would love to check out.
Yeah, man. So you're from Thornhill, right? You're from Thornhill. You're a teacher up there.
I teach in Barrie, so it's even farther off from Toronto than I'd like, but pays the bills.
So I've never really been to Thornhill. I mean, I've passed through Barrie on the way to Toronto or back to my hometown of North Bay. So, I mean, what's it like moving from like where you live in, I guess, a more a quieter suburban region to coming right downtown where the noise is?
Oof. I have to admit, I've probably spent much of my teenage years as well as my early 20s, even my late 20s in Toronto. That's usually my weekends are. I spent a lot of time on the subway, going back and forth from downtown Toronto. It is an amazing experience. I know a lot of people probably take the subway for granted. I enjoy it because I don't know. Whenever I go on it with my friends, it's always a little bit of an adventure. Uh, whether it be through meeting different people or late night subway rides all the way back where we start sing-alongs on the subway. Yes, that has happened. We have done that.
Sing-alongs on the subway.
Sing-alongs on the subways. Sometimes you start with Disney classics. Aladdin is a very famous one, or Foo Fighters or whatnot. We always somehow manage to get the streetcar popping. So it's an interesting take going downtown. It's a big difference, like you said. It's very quiet up in the suburbs. But I think there's a reason why a lot of young people enjoy going to Toronto, and that's because, like you said, it's the noise.
So you guys seem like the best possible people to go traveling on the subway with, or I mean, I guess the worst from some perspectives.
Right? Yeah.
So I mean, I gotta ask you the really important question. When you're talking Aladdin, are we talking like a whole new world or Prince Ali? Like, well, what direction are we going on with this Aladdin
a whole new
scene
world.
here?
It's got to be a whole new world.
Oh, just making sure you have taste. I mean, that's where it's got to be. You have to sing a whole new world at least once, right? No, that's fantastic. I find it's cool, right? Because most people, myself included, once they get on the subway, or once they've been inundated with the subway so often, they kind of shut down. They don't want to be involved. They don't want to connect. Like, I'll tell you, I was on the subway recently, and I get on, I almost get bowled over by this girl who's rushing out of the train, right? And that was slightly irritating to me, but whatever. I moved past it. I sat down. So she meets up with this other dude, and what they're doing is at every single stop, and they're like laughing uproariously. They're jumping out of the train, taking a selfie with the sign, and then jumping back in before the doors closed. And eventually, they miss the door closing, and they look just completely disappointed. So, and I found myself being like, ugh, finally, God, I couldn't wait till they just like shut up,
Right.
And then I like kind of caught myself. And I'm like, man, this is a really minor thing that you're allowing to annoy you this much right now. Like, I don't know if I'm getting old or something like that, but it's like, what am I asking for, a quiet subway ride to downtown on a Saturday now? You know what I'm saying?
Do you think that they were tourists? Is that why you think they were doing that? They just wanted to take a picture with every stop?
See, I almost feel like they were local, which annoys me more because they weren't taking a video, so the laughter and the noise that they were making, like, it didn't add anything to that picture,
Right,
I,
right.
I feel like I almost would have accepted it more if they were tourists and I'm like, they're enjoying Toronto, right? But nah, these guys seemed, they were local. They're just doing a bit. But I was like, it occurred to me, like, man, if I had seen this like back in the day, back when I first moved to Toronto, I would have been amused. I would have been entertained. But like, as the years passed, I feel like I've gotten like desensitized to the humans around me in the subway. Where if something's out of the norm, I'm just like, oh my God, shut up.
And you know what? I think that happens when you've been taking the subway so much. I know that when I actually had my own experience in London, when I was in London, England, and I was taking the subway every day, it went from, oh my God, I'm taking the subway, to, oh, I gotta take the subway again. It's a huge drastic change, and especially I think it's like you said, we get desensitized to it. You take it all the time, and it kind of loses its interest after a while.
Absolutely. But yeah, that's cool. So what were you doing in London, England?
I was teaching in England for about 6 months. I went over
Hmm.
there right after I finished teachers college, and I decided I decided, hey, you know what? I want to do my whole teaching abroad thing right now and get it out of the way. So I went to
Hmm.
England with one of my buddies from teachers college, and we lived there for about 6 months. I was a supply teacher, so I got to go all over London, which was great. Every day I was on the tube. Every day I was taking public transit. But the subway system there is amazing compared to Toronto's. It's got multiple lines compared to like our 3 lines that we have. But yeah, it
Hmm.
was a great experience. I loved it.
That's awesome. What's living like in England, in the UK? Because I mean, I've passed through once. Like, I've been there very very briefly for a few days in Coventry, England, where some of my cousins live. But that's not the same as living in an actual city, like being in the big city abroad.
Yeah, it's busy. London is very busy, but I'm sure downtown Toronto is also very busy. Um, I think that's just it with a city. At the same time, there is a pretty huge difference I found between Toronto and England, and that was the people. The
Hmm.
people in England, not saying they're not great people, but when it's the daytime and they're working, they're in work mode. But as soon as you flip the lights off, as soon as it gets dark, it's everyone's at the pub, everyone's socializing. I think the way we have coffee stores here in Canada where we
Hmm.
socialize at coffee shops, in England they socialize at pubs. Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, they drink. They go to a pub after work and they go drink. So it's a little bit of a uh, different aspect, I think, between Toronto citizens and English citizens.
It's a culture shock, right? Like, I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine who recently came back from living abroad, and he told me that he went out on this date this one time with this girl, right? And he went there and they went to a pub because, like you say, their pubs are our coffee shops, and they ordered beer, right? But like where for some people in our atmosphere, one beer is like the gateway to 5, 10, 15 more,
Yeah.
for them it was like that one beer, it was like a coffee. Like if you go to a coffee shop with someone, you don't expect them to like take their large cafe latte and just pound it in one. You'd look at them
Right.
like they're
Yeah.
nuts, and it was the same thing there, that he went there and he's like, no, it's like coffee. Like you sip it, it's slow, it's an experience. It's not something that you just pound that guy back and then
Oh
order
yeah.
another one. But yeah, that's so I know that's fantastic. So were you ever tempted to stay teaching abroad, or like to come instead of coming back to Canada?
Oh no, it's really expensive to live in London. Not saying that it's not going to get expensive to live in Toronto, but it's expensive to live in London. I also wanted to come back because this is where I grew up, and this is where I want to teach. This is my life here. So no,
Hmm.
again, it was just something that I wanted to do. Because I always told myself I want to do a teaching abroad experience. So I
Hmm.
did it. I went to England, and then came back and started working here in Toronto. Or well, now
No,
technically I'm
awesome.
working in Barrie, but yeah,
Now it's technically Barrie. So, did you want to come back and work in Toronto eventually, or was Barrie or the surrounding area, I suppose, more of the target?
it's funny that you say that because originally when I went to teachers college, my goal was to work in Toronto. But as I got older, I started to realize the chances of me living in Toronto are getting a lot slimmer. So
Hmm.
I kind of said to myself, you know what? It would make sense more for me to live or to work in a community that I'm going to end up living in. So I chose to
Hmm.
work in Simcoe because I think right now Simcoe is kind of where a lot of families are moving to. Even in Vaughan, it's getting really expensive to live. So I said I'm going to pick the next area that a lot of people are moving, and it's booming right now is Simcoe. So that's why I chose
Hmm.
to work there.
That's a very good point, right? Like for however fantastic the lifestyle is here, and it is truly amazing. Like I'll level with you. I never want to leave Toronto. I love this city, but there is a sense of impermanence living in the downtown core. At least I found that when I lived there during my university years, because you're renting. You may at maximum you buy a condo, but I mean, I'll be honest, that one of the greatest parts of like my childhood in general, which I almost miss having here in a way, is like a backyard. Like we would go out and just like play like soccer or something like that in the backyard. And it's something that if you want to get in a larger city, you have to go to the surrounding areas. Like you have to move outside. Even the slight distance that I moved out of the main city to be living here in East York. I mean, it's in some ways literally a breath of fresh air to go for a run or something around here versus going for a run or going outside in Toronto, like downtown.
I don't know if you ever had street hockey growing up, but I can't imagine playing street hockey right now in Toronto.
I mean, I feel like you'd almost definitely get hit by a car, like immediately. You would immediately get hit by a car, you know? Like, I mean, have you ever been to Riverdale Park, the large
No, I
park near
haven't.
Broadview Station? So Riverdale Park It's awesome. It's a beautiful, beautiful spot in the city. Great view of the skyline. And to get to Riverdale Park, you don't just like go to the side of the road. There's this dip that goes down, right? This like really huge hill that if you play sports, you learn to hate passionately afterwards because you have to climb back up it. But
Right.
I have always thought, looking at it, I'm like, it's so good that there's this dip, this big hill on one side and these trees on the other. Because people are always playing soccer or ultimate frisbee or Quidditch or something like that in this field. And I can't help thinking with the speed the cars are going by, man, if a ball or something ever went onto that road, like it's over. It's done.
done.
The ball,
That's it.
like, your ball's gone.
Yeah, I totally understand. I mean, that hill must be killer during the winter. You can probably go snow sledding down that.
Yeah, see, my fiance's been trying to convince me to do that forever. But once the sled goes down, you now have to get back up.
Oh yeah,
So
well then there's your leg workout.
exactly. I mean, they could just put in ski lifts, and I feel like that would solve the entire issue. But I
Probably.
mean, that's a beef I have with the city of Toronto. So we'll just let that one lie. You
All
know what
right.
I mean? So I mean, we've talked about some of the hidden gems around Toronto. One of the ones that I experienced recently, like recently as of 2016, was I went to a baseball game, and that was one of the first things. Like I've lived in this city for at this point nearly 10 years, and I had never ever been to a Jays game, and
Uh-huh.
I thought it was fantastic. Like just like the definitely unhealthy food, the people, the noise, the heat, like it was phenomenal, you know?
Interesting enough, it's funny that you brought that up because I actually went to my very first Jays game last year when I was 26. I know I've been in this city my entire
Wow.
life. I grew up here, and it wasn't until I was 26 years old that I got into an actual Jays game. Um, Go
That's even
figure.
worse than me, man.
I'm not a big baseball person. But it was one of my friends. Well, it was his bachelor party. We had decided that we were gonna go do a Jays game, and then we were hit a bunch of things after that. Um, we had like the really really high up seats. They were really cheap. They were like $50, and um, it was, I think, quite an interesting atmosphere. I think if anything else, I enjoyed the people the most at the game because all the chanting, all the everyone's
Hmm.
doing the wave. It really gets you into it. Um, Again, I'm not a baseball person, but I loved it because the people there make it really interesting. The atmosphere is great. I mean, the food is a little overpriced, but you got to deal with that. But other than that, it was great. I think a lot of the community behind it is pretty mind blowing. Um, I talked to some people while I was there, and there were people there from Barrie, there were people there from Pickering, so people actually drive all the way into Toronto to go see these games, and that blew my
Hmm.
mind because being from Thornhill, I'm a subway away, and here there are people driving all the way from Barrie, all the way from Pickering, and they're coming all the way downtown Toronto for whatever an hour and a half drive that it takes, and they're coming to what to support their team. So it was definitely an amazing experience. Going to my first Blue Jays game.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's one of those things where you've been in the city, and like when you first get here, you want to see everything. Like you want to go up the CN Tower, stand on the glass floor. You want to make sure you go to a Jays game and a Raptors game, and go to Woodbine Beach and everything like that. But I feel like the longer you're here, even though you might not have done some of these things, they're just so familiar. They're just so available that you end up just, I guess, not doing them.
And you know what, this kind of has to go like what I was talking about before. You almost have to go on these little adventures to find these hidden places in Toronto. That same day for my buddy's bachelor party is actually when I discovered Cherry Beach BBQ, because originally after the
Really?
Blue Jays game we were supposed to go to Amsterdam Brew House for dinner, but we got there and the
Mhm.
place was packed because it's right beside the stadium, right?
Of course.
So one of the guys suggested, "Hey, you know what? Forget this. Let's go to this place called Cherry Beach BBQ, and you guys will enjoy it." Um, and it's right by Cherry Beach, obviously, but it
Obviously.
is. They have some, the most, probably some of the most amazing sandwiches that I've ever tasted. Pulled pork, anything in terms of that department, amazing. Their pulled pork is really good. I would highly recommend it to anyone.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So tell me more about this bachelor party. I mean, so we all have our ideas of what happens in a bachelor party, you know, and I mean, you know, reveal what you can, because who knows, right? But what was that like? I mean, I'll level with you. I have never actually been to a bachelor party before.
I think it can be done incredibly differently depending on whose bachelor party it is. I've definitely been to the most interesting of bachelor parties, and I've also been to probably the most low key of bachelor parties. I think a lot of society thinks that bachelor parties have to be these crazy night outs for the groom, but I really think all it comes down to is, what does the groom want to do? What does he want to do? What does his friends want to do? And so for this bachelor party, all we had decided on doing was essentially having an eventful day. We started the morning off with archery tag. So we went to Archer's Arena. We did archery tag there, and then we followed that up with the Jays game. We hit up dinner, and then from dinner we actually went to Battle. BATL, which is the Backyard Axe Throwing League. There's one on Cherry Beach, and it's axe throwing, as you would imagine. And most of our first experiences ever doing axe throwing, and it was probably, I mean, I haven't been to very many axe throwing places, but it was probably a very good first experience for me. I was pretty terrible at it, but I was labeled that day Clutch King of the day.
Clutch King.
Clutch King.
So what
does that mean?
What
the clutch is a really, really tiny green dot that is on the board, and it's usually off to the top corners. And the clutch is basically, I think it's worth the most points. It's worth either 5 or 7 points. And if you are down on imagine like really low, a lot of people tend to try and go for the clutch to get back in the game. So I needed a clutch to stay in the game. And I was like, you know what? I'm probably not going to get it, but I'm going to call it anyways. And boom, got the clutch. Everyone freaked out. It was probably an amazing experience for me. So yes, I was labeled the Clutch King that day.
That's fantastic.
I did not win. I think I was actually probably like 3rd place or 4th place, but I got Clutch King, so it made up for it.
Well, that's what counts. Hey, man, you're the people's choice. You're the people's choice.
Yeah, it was the people's choice, exactly. But definitely an amazing experience. Another, random place that I discovered. I'm sure for a lot of people it probably isn't, but again, I'm not from Toronto, so getting to explore these different areas. But the final bit of that night, which I think it really has to tie into one of those hidden gems that I still go to this day. Right after we finished axe throwing, the people that worked there had suggested that we go to their bar. Yes, the Axe Throwing League of Ontario has a bar, and it is called the Greater Good, which is probably my favorite bar I've ever been to. The Greater Good, it's by Dufferin and DuPont, and it's an amazing bar. I'm just going to throw it out. It is probably one of my favorite experiences. It's one of those little hole-in-the-wall places that not a lot of people know about. And I'm probably now telling everyone this now, so everyone's going to go there. It is quite the amazing bar because the beer there is very good. They tend to try and tailor towards local breweries, so they have a lot of local beer instead of getting all like the Canadian, the Budweiser, all of those. And on top of that, they have this is I'm not even making this up. Their second floor is free vintage arcade games.
What?
They got Pac-Man.
Wow.
They've got it's great. It is honestly an amazing experience, and it's free too. The skeet ball, I think it's like $1 per game, but everything else is free.
I've never even heard of this place.
Well,
You're
now you
blowing
have,
my
and now you
mind
can go
right
check
now.
it out.
You're blowing my mind right now.
And to top it off, there is a pizza place inside of it, so you can get pizza, beer, and then play arcade games.
Man, do they have like apartments in there as well? Because I think I might be moving. I'm just saying. This seems to have literally everything that I could possibly want. Like, wow.
It probably is one of the places that I would recommend for a lot of people. It used to be my number one dating destination. I'd always take my dates there because
True.
just drinks, pizza, and arcade games. Just it rounds out a very well done date.
What else could you want?
Exactly right. Who would say no to pizza? Come on.
Exactly.
But it's definitely a place I would highly recommend to anyone. It's probably my little hole in the wall place that I would recommend for anyone to check out. And it really is a testament to the things that you can find in the city if you really look and you really keep an eye out for them.
That's fantastic. No, that's so cool, right? It's those small places, right? Those places that are out of the way in the middle of nowhere that you don't even know they exist. And then you go there and it's crazy. It just blows your mind. There's a place on Queen Street that I always recommend that anyone check out. And it's called Bar Chef. Now,
Bar Chef?
Bar Chef. Oh yeah, Bar Chef. It's along Queen. Man. Yeah, it's along Queen. It's a bit past Spadina.
I think I've heard of this place. This is the place with the fancy drinks, right?
Oh, very fancy drinks. And not just alcoholic drinks either, right? They do this for alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages. They have, it's called like liquid gastronomy or something like that. It was a huge craze a while back. And the way it works, the way they put these things together, it's not just, you mix a drink and you hand it to someone. It's all about the medleys of flavor. So they might have, this snifter where you just smell the smell of old leather before taking a drink. Or we got their version of a pina colada involved being served in an actual coconut with a bunch of different spices and whatnot. So you have to take a spoonful of something, eat this spoonful, then take a bite of the pineapple, and then take a drink of the virgin pina colada. Like it was nuts. Like that place is so cool. And the thing is, they don't advertise. They don't put a big sign on it. It's like one dark door and the window has a curtain over it. So if you're just walking by and you're trying to just find a spot for the night, that's not going to be the place that you go to because you're just not going to notice it beside all the other flashing signs. But I feel like those are the places, if you can find them, that have some of the coolest experiences in the city.
I completely agree with that. I think that, and again, this kind of goes towards the diversity that we have in Toronto. I feel like because we're such a giant community of different peoples, so many different cultures that create the downtown area. It really is amazing because the things you will find in Kensington Market are not the same things you'll find in, say, Liberty Village, right? And it's just it's so amazing the amount of places that we have in this city, and it's one of the reasons why I love Toronto is this opportunity to almost pick an area and then just have an adventure in it and discover all these locations that you can potentially want to visit one day.
Absolutely. Like even when I lived like 2 years ago now in Parkdale, in the Parkdale region, I'd always get these weird looks because Parkdale isn't exactly the most fancy gentrified neighborhood out there. Like it's just outside Liberty Village, but it's visibly not Liberty Village. And you go there, and when I was first there, I was kind of like, oh, what have I done to myself? I have a longer commute to work. This place is kind of rubbish. I wasn't happy until I actually got out and began to discover some of the cool like little holes in the walls. And I mean, in Parkdale, everything kind of seems like a hole in the wall. But all those places had something cool to offer. They had something new and something interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally get that.
So, okay, I mean, I'm going to level with you. You've given us a lot of recommendations for a variety of places around the city.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I am greedy. So I want one more. Either a place to be or a thing to do? If you could recommend one more place to be or one more thing to do in Toronto, what would that be?
Oh gosh. My thing to recommend was gonna be the greater good, but let's let me think for 1 minute. Probably so probably it's something I did way back in university. The haunted house tours that they do in downtown Toronto. Really, really great experience. I think I went on it with a date, and probably a great date idea because obviously, you're going to scare them. Actually, I do that a lot. I take dates on scary things because I want them to hold me.
I get it. I'm not gonna lie to you. Michael. There's a distinct possibility that we're gonna name this episode, dating scenes with Michael Cicero.
Dating ideas, right? Next time, exactly. Sky Zone. Why it's an amazing date idea.
Okay, so haunted house tours.
The haunted house tours. I think a lot of people who, even if you're scared, I think it's still a great idea because you get to walk around a lot. There's a lot of downtown. It's basically a downtown tour that you go check out all these areas that sort of have this haunted history behind it. So I would definitely recommend that as either something to do with friends or do it with a date or even do it by yourself. Meet some new people. Why not? But
sure.
Anything that is like that, I always enjoy because I get to walk around a lot, which is great for my health, and B, you get to experience new places, which is great. So that's probably something I would recommend for a lot of people to try out in Toronto.
And I mean, that's really the point, right? As familiar as we get with the city, as much as we love the city, there is always something to be said for the opportunity to discover new places within the city. Thank you so much, Michael, for joining us on the show. It has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
I've had the same pleasure chatting with you.
Cheers. And that's a wrap for this week's episode of Toronto Story Archive. Each episode, we bring on guests from Toronto to tell us a story, any story about their life in the city. Our commitment is to not sell, pitch, or bore you. Our goal is to amuse, excite, and at the end of the day, entertain you with stories told by the many voices Toronto has to offer. If you have a story to share, please shoot me an email to submissions@torontostoryarchive.com. My name is Waja, and thank you. Thank you for tuning in to Toronto Story Archive.